Well, thank you very much, Beverly, and I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to go through that very long and distinguished list of names again, but could I say a very warm welcome to our Prime Minister, to ambassadors and representatives of the Diplomatic Corps, to the Right Reverend Dr. Philip Fryer, Anglican Archbishop of Melbourne, and Mrs. Fryer, to all our overseas guests. And it's wonderful to see so many of them here, including some many old friends from earlier days, to our distinguished members and guests of the Global Foundation. As chairman of the Foundation, it's with great pleasure that I extend the warmest of welcome to you, Prime Minister, to this landmark gathering. I can recall a few years back when I swore you in as Deputy Prime Minister at Government House in Yarralumla, and after the swearing in we adjourned to a little room to run what is known as an Executive Council meeting, where we, I think, were signing off on the Kyoto Treaty. And in this room was a big glass window looking out onto the gardens. And as we sat down to discuss this very serious business, we looked up and there were about 150 school kids, mostly girls, about 70 metres away. And they couldn't believe their eyes. There was the Governor-General, the Deputy Prime Minister, and a whole swag of very important people discussing these important subjects, and they just stood there. And eventually, the Deputy Prime Minister, she was then, stood up. Well, these 150 girls, they screamed and shouted and waved and sang. And then she sat down and we did a bit more of the treaty. Then I stood up and there was almost deathly silence. And that's the way it goes in this life. But what I thought at the time is, where else on this planet could you find a group of school kids 70 metres away from some of the highest office holders in the land without a policeman in sight, without a soldier in sight, without a guard dog or without a barbed wire fence? And I thought, good on Australia. Well, to all our sponsors, members and guests from Australia and overseas, may I extend the warmest of welcomes. And for those of you not fully familiar with our work, let me say a few words about who we are and what we do. The Global Foundation is a non-profit citizens organisation. It was founded 14 years ago, and our Secretary-General was an initiator there to help facilitate long-range strategies for Australia, bringing together the best of Australia and indeed the world. And it's fully funded by the private sector, working purely to support the public good, and I'll say a bit more about that later. And a hallmark of our style is that we operate in a totally bipartisan manner, staying above the politics of the day and working closely with governments of the day from the top down. Prime Minister, we are most grateful for your support and that of your government in recognising our role and working in partnership with us for the betterment of the country. We're also grateful to the opposition, with whom we maintain effective links and who will be represented at our summit tomorrow. Australia and the world has been the Global Foundation's motif and natural territory since our formation. It's formed the basis of our Rolling Australia program over the last 18 months, which is one of the most ambitious community consultation and dialogue programs ever conducted by a non-government organisation in this country and indeed internationally. It's been conducted in various configurations and locations across the length and the breadth of Australia, and in some cases internationally, bringing together a diverse array of informed and influential voices. Now, the Australia program has 5 key themes. First, Australia's future economy. How do we maximise Australia's economic potential, ensuring that we remain globally competitive using all the skills and tools available to us in the digital age? Second, national and global food security, which I personally see as the greatest potential threat to global stability. How do we meet the need to virtually double food production by 2050 with rapidly decreasing land and water availability and reduced soil fertility? Third, sustainable nation, sustainable planet. How does this planet of ours, due to reach 9 to 10 billion by 2050, meet resource-wise and sustainably the understandable middle-class aspirations of hundreds of millions of global, rural and urban poor surviving currently on around $2 a day. Fourth, Australia's global and regional engagement. Can Australia play an influential role in ensuring that the three great players in the globe today, China, India and the United States, always continue to talk? And closer to home, how do we better engage with our near neighbours, Papua New Guinea, Indonesia and the Pacific Islands, to name some? And finally, empowerment of citizens and the nature and shape of future governance. Fortuitously and intersecting with the Australia program, the Prime Minister announced some time ago that her government in the coming months would prepare and release a major white paper called Australia in the Asian Century. A task force headed by the respected former Secretary of Treasury, Dr. Ken Henry, who's with us tonight and will speak tomorrow, is helping to prepare that paper in what is expected to be one of the most overarching and defining whole of government policy statements of recent times. As I understand it, the Australia in the Asian Century White Paper will certainly address our key international relationships, but importantly it will also serve as a guidance basis for government, underpinning the ongoing transformations which this country will have to make if we are to fully understand and benefit from the Asian century now upon us. Now this brings me to our Australia Summit, to be opened by the Prime Minister tonight and continuing tomorrow. It will provide a forum for the highest quality to discuss what Australia's involvement in Asia really should mean, including most importantly how our Asian and regional friends and indeed the rest of the world perceive that involvement. It's a rare and valuable opportunity for many voices in the Australian and international community to have their say in a respected and reflective place. How Australia shapes its destiny in and with the region in which we live is of the utmost importance, not only to our mutual prosperity, but also to regional peace and stability, and to the role that Australia and Asia together can and should play in the wider world. After all, we are called the Global Foundation, and what distinguishes the Foundation from many other bodies is our interest in being a channel and a facilitator of community views to governments and vice versa, not in taking strong positions ourselves. We're delighted that our Prime Minister will address this vital topic in her landmark speech tonight. Thank you again, Prime Minister, for recognising the value of our summit in providing the Australian Government with a special opportunity to listen to the community ahead of the finalisation of your most important policy statement. May I now take this opportunity to specifically welcome from Malaysia Dr. Michael Yeo, Chairman of the World Chinese Economic Forum. This very significant conference, held for the past 3 years in Kuala Lumpur and bringing together the global Chinese diaspora, will be meeting for the first time in Melbourne this November. I'd like to acknowledge the exemplary work of the Governor of Victoria, His Excellency Mr. Alex Chernoff, in facilitating this outcome, and I would also like to announce that the Global Foundation will be the major presenting partner for the Economic Forum. Further information on it will be available during the course of the summit. As I mentioned earlier, our sponsors and our members more generally fund our operations entirely, a most generous contribution from non-government sources to the future well-being of Australia. Could I therefore, on behalf of the Board, sincerely thank those sponsors of the Australia program and the Australia Summit, and they include GHT, Lend-Lease, Pacific Hydro, Telstra, VC as major sponsors, Bain & Company, Ernst & Young, Orica, PwC, Sunrise as supporting sponsors, and the ABC through its international arm, the Australian Network Television and Radio Australia, and The Age. Of course, our work's not going to stop here tonight. It's ongoing and expanding its reach and capacity to inform good public policy and public-private partnerships and to build practical and lasting connections to our region and the world. I would also like to announce a new major sponsor commitment which will assist with the conduct of our future program. And in particular, and on behalf of the Board and our members, may I extend my warmest thanks to the Pratt Foundation and Coles Supermarkets, which have both recently committed to major sponsorships of the Foundation. We're working in close partnership with the Australian Government through Minister of Agriculture, who will in coming months release another vitally important government white paper for a national food plan, encompassing the total dimension from paddock to plate. Australia's role in becoming the clean green food bowl of Asia is being written through many hands, and it really is an extraordinary collaborative effort, and you'll hear more about this tomorrow. So thanks to these and to our other potential sponsors for your generosity and your preparedness to roll up your sleeves and to work with us in helping government and in the community in addressing our specific summit challenges, namely Australia's role in providing global and regional food security, in greening Asia and the planet, in connecting our economy, in integrating with our neighbourhood, and in empowering our citizens to achieve Australia's global potential through the delivery of better outcomes and good governance. I encourage all of you from the corporate and philanthropic sectors to lend your ongoing practical support to the work of the Global Foundation. As I can attest, you'll be amazed at what we can achieve together with goodwill and very limited resources. And beyond this, you can take genuine pride as a citizen of Australia in leaving behind a positive legacy for future generations. One such legacy to which we are presently making a contribution relates to China, which faces the mind-boggling task of moving scores of millions, hundreds of millions of its citizens from the countryside to the cities over the next decades. And the Chinese leadership knows that it has no choice but to ensure that this massive urbanisation process is implemented in a manner which is genuinely green and environmentally cutting edge. And this is where Australia comes in, with our expertise in building and regenerating cities, in water and environmental management, in energy and resource efficiency. And a number of Australian firms, including GHD, have been on the ground in China and throughout Asia for many years, bringing to bear such expertise. But there's a lot more opportunity there, I can promise you. I was pleased to lead a foundation delegation to China last September at the invitation of the Vice Chairman of China's peak government agency, the National Development and Reform Commission, who is responsible for the Green Growth Strategy, the centrepiece of China's current 5-year plan. Foundation members and firms with expertise in these green growth areas accompanied me on the mission, which has led to a unique partnership between the Chinese authorities and the Global Foundation in helping China to green its cities. And why did this magnificent opportunity come about? Because since its inception in 1998, the Global Foundation has worked closely with Chinese authorities at the highest levels as a trusted friend, not only in strengthening Australia-China relations, but also working with China globally as it assumes greater influence and responsibility in the world. The Global Foundation tends to attract outstanding talents to its work, as it has earned the reputation of bringing together for the common good people of considerable influence and goodwill at home and abroad. One such talent, a giant in Australia's history, passed away last year. He served with great distinction as Governor-General of Australia. He was a brilliant constitutional lawyer who trained many of the sharpest legal minds. He was a great Australian, and I'm speaking, of course, of Sir Zelman Cowen, who was also the founding chairman of the Global Foundation and who maintained a keen interest in our endeavours right up until his passing. And I'm pleased to announce tonight that the Global Foundation, with the blessing of Lady Cowen and family, will later this year launch an endowment fund, the Sir Zelman Cowen Fellowship, which will enable the membership and the memory of Sir Zelman and his association with us to continue well into the future. I do hope that all present tonight will see fit to support this fellowship when it's formally launched later this year. Other such talents include our Secretary-General, Steve Howard, and his small but dedicated team. They're all people who understand that citizens can and must play a role alongside and in partnership with governments of whatever persuasion in helping to build Australia's and the world's sustainable prosperity. Prime Minister, might I again thank you for joining us tonight, for lending your support to our work, and for your willingness to strengthen the partnership between the Australian Government and the Global Foundation. We hope that you and all present tonight will greatly enjoy the occasion. Thank you very much, everyone.